Forza Horizon 4 is a stunning game, and having a camera mode, naturally we wanna photograph this beautiful world. So you start photo mode and you're greeted with this small infinity of parameters. If you don't touch them, your photos come out normal. But we want photos like this. Maybe we want pictures like that, and we would even be happy with a photo like that. To get these results, I'm gonna teach you step by step what each camera slider does so you can start capturing the best of Forza, no matter where you are. First, you have the controls. When we enter photo mode for the first time, we discover that the left stick moves, the right one looks around, the up and down arrows zoom in and out, left and right tilt the camera, and the triggers raise and lower it. In addition, LB cleans up the car's cosmetic damage, and RB changes the type of vignette effect, which, shown more intensely, are these three types of borders for the image. I prefer this one, but it depends on what you want to communicate with the photo. The X button focuses on where you're looking and A takes the picture. The B button returns, and most importantly, Y opens the camera settings menu. This is where the magic happens. All of these controls change some aspect of your photo. The first is the filter, a set of pre-chosen settings that make your photo have a certain style. I never use them. The second is the shutter speed. The bigger its value, the more motion blur your photo will have and a greater feeling of speed. Here, you can see a photo with speed on 100 and one with speed set to 0. Then comes the focus mode. If you are in either mode and focus on the environment, it'll look like the car's passing in front of the camera fixed on a tripod. If you focus on the car in panning mode, it'll look like the photo was taken by a stationary photographer who turned the camera to follow the car's movement. If you focus on the car in tracking mode, it'll look like you were following it with another car and took the picture that way. The tracking mode is usually easier to use. Then there's the focus slider. You don't need to touch this one if you're using autofocus, which is pressing X. What it does is, if the aperture is greater than 0, it translates the focus plane in or out. This automatically adjusts when you aim and focus using the X button. Just don't do it while the menu is open, otherwise it resets all your settings. The fifth camera setting is the exposure, and it regulates how much light can reach the camera sensor and expose the image. It starts at 50 and is usually fine, but you don't need to be afraid to dial it down a lot, which makes the dark parts of the image less visible, yet shows the bright parts better. You can also crank it up a lot, which makes the brighter portions overexposed, but it's great if you want to show the darker details. The next setting is the aperture, which is best used with 0 shutter speed. It is what controls how blurry the non-focus planes are. Focus planes work like this. When you focus on an object, everything at that distance from the camera comprises a focus plane. What is closer or more distant than that plane in relation to the camera gets blurred out, and more blurred the further away from the plane. These unfocused regions form the bokeh, which is characterized in Forza for its geometric shape and quality, which are the bokeh shape and sampling settings. The shape can vary between circle, diamond, pentagon, and hexagon, which changes the design of the blurred light source. The sampling method can be fast or quality. In fast mode, some artifacts are visible and the geometric shape is not so defined, while in quality mode, the image formation is much smoother and more uniform. From here on down, the options are closer to those found in image editing software, and I personally don't use them that much, but they can be useful to pass some sensation or emotion through the photo. Before that, we have 4 interesting settings at the list's very bottom regarding the objects that we can see in the scenes. The car lights can be switched on or off, including the tail lights. Drivers can stay in the car or not, but the car only appears without a driver if it's stationary. In addition, you can activate or deactivate the crowds, which are usually at the festival, and the same for the creatures, which are the animals scattered through the game map. There, now back to the post-processing and editing settings. The contrast at 50 means that the brightest parts of the image are white and the darkest parts are black, with all the intermediate tones evenly spread out in terms of brightness. If you increase the contrast a lot, all the slightly lighter tones will turn white and all the slightly darker tones will turn black. If you decrease the contrast a lot, the black and white pixels will become less and less extreme, gaining and losing brightness respectively until at the limit they become gray. Then we have color, which at 50 is the color of the game outside of photo mode. The higher, the more vibrant the colors are, and the lower, the closer to black and white your image becomes. The next slider is responsible for controlling the image brightness. The higher you set it, the more whitish the image becomes, because every pixel in the image has its value increased. The lower it is, the closer to black it is for the same reason. Sepia is a reddish-brown color. You should recognize this from old or yellowish photos. This control makes your image more sepia the closer to 100 the slider is set. Vignette is a feature that we have already discussed, and it's a gradient edge that is often used to draw attention to the central part of the image. I like using anything from 30 to 70, more than that, and it starts to seem too obvious. Finally, the temperature is a setting that changes the image from a blue to a yellow tone. They say that the more bluish an image is, the colder it'll look, and the more yellowish, the more the feeling of warmth is passed. Now that you know how to control the camera, nothing better than this video in which I teach you the fundamental techniques to take good pictures. In addition, I also make videos on how to tune your car, how to race better, and how to make easy money in Forza Horizon 4.